It's beautiful outside, perfect September day with lots of sunshine. Oh, would you look at Washington, huh? I'm going outside today.
I drove down the Jersey Pike and saw the World Trade Center. I did that about 5 o'clock in the morning. And then I went to a hotel, got ready for my job, and went to work. And by that time, the first plane had gone into the tower. And everybody at work knew it, but I didn't know what they were talking about because I had no idea. And then we went to another building where there was a big TV set. And maybe 3 minutes after we got into that other building, the second plane flew into the second tower. And I said nothing. I just sat down. I'd never seen anything like it.
I vaguely remember me being in first grade and quickly glancing up at the board and my teacher writing the date, I believe, and then I remember looking back at my paper, writing the date, and I specifically remember writing 9/11. I don't quite remember the year, and then I remember the principal going up the speaker and announcing, I believe it was called the Code Red, and that's when everyone had to go under the desks in kind of form an armadillo pose, and then I just started remembering, and that's kind of when my memory fades.
I was definitely in elementary school. I don't remember which grade. Oh, it had to be first because we were in the same grade. Yeah, I was in first grade. Yeah, and there was definitely some chaos all of a sudden in this like quiet moment we were having, and doing something totally normal and then just kind of breaking out was scary enough. Not even being there, just like seeing how our teachers and like how, you know, the people we were looking up to were like really scared in a sense. And all I remember is my mom trying to come pick me up, and no one was able to go home. So I didn't take the bus that day. My mom was just waiting for me to get out of school, and then she just rushed me right home.
I was born December 1999, so I do not remember 9/11 at all. And for impacting my life, I personally didn't have anyone like in my family or anyone I was close to like be a victim of 9/11, so I wouldn't say that it impacted me personally.
I remember I didn't think it was real because I was getting ready for work, so I had changed the channel to see if it was a spoof. It affected my life because my dad was a firefighter.
I was in Warren, Pennsylvania on a business trip for HSD USA, visiting a CNC manufacturer, and we were inside looking at his machine, and then all of a sudden they came running out of the office and told us, so we stopped everything and we went down to the nearest Holiday Inn and sat there, and everybody was looking at the TV, just tears running down their face and in total disbelief.
Definitely remember being in class, 7th grade, Mr. Fusco, Sedgwick Middle School. I just remember the teachers coming in, and I can't remember if they wheeled the TVs out or if we went to a room with a TV. And, you know, 7th grade, we're pretty young, probably 12, 13 years old. We're all kind of just around the TV, just watching the planes go in. I don't even think the second tower had been hit yet, and we kind of saw it going into the towers, and you're just like, wow, this is, you don't really understand when you're that young and hear the Pentagon's been attacked. And, you know, I knew what the Pentagon was, but it was hard to visualize, you know, that young, kind of just what exactly had happened.
Well, I remember I was a freshman in high school, and I actually stayed home that day, and the only reason I got out of bed is because I could smell my mom cooking. And when I came upstairs, she already had the news on, and we were actually watching live when the second plane hit the towers. How has it changed my life? I don't know. I guess, I don't know. At this point, 15 years later, probably not my day-to-day, but, you know, Patriot Act, man.
The attack could have definitely been prevented if people was more aware. aware of what's going on. I do not feel safer today because there's a lot of neglect going on around the world within ourselves as a country.
I don't think the attack could have been prevented, and I feel safer in airports, I guess, but overall, not really.
No, I don't think the attack could have been prevented. I think it was too random. It was too out of nowhere for it to be prevented.
I think it could have been prevented if they have like a marshal on board, like that's just looks like a normal passenger. I'm pretty sure that's what they do now, but the security is definitely better now.
I mean, it's hard to say if it could be prevented because now we have security measures and things are still happening. So I don't think it really could have been prevented. And I feel a little bit safer, but unfortunately, some bad things like this and shootings and all kinds of crazy things are still happening.
I believe the attack definitely could have been prevented because there was a prior attack on the World Trade Center before that, and if it was kind of ignored. So if they did something about that to up security, then I believe it could have been prevented.
I don't think the attack could have been prevented because anybody can do anything. They just have to figure out a way to do it.
I don't think there was any way to prevent that attack. It was well thought out. They found the weaknesses in our airline industry and took advantage of it. I can't blame anyone. Do I feel safer? You know, besides being aggravated all the time when I go to the airport, I guess we're a little bit safer. But you know, immediately after the attack, probably within 3 months, we were leaving for Fort Lauderdale. We had no problems leaving Hartford, but on our return back a week later from Fort Lauderdale, I stood stunned as two soldiers or reservists or somebody with M16s were harassing an elderly couple that just couldn't understand what was happening to them. They were in their 80s or 90s and they were just befuddled. And that was a total disgrace.
The attack can be prevented, I don't know. Do I feel safe? Yeah, I feel the United States is one of the safest country ever.
Could the attack have been prevented? Well, I know nothing about politics, but I feel like in some way, shape, or form it could have been prevented because of the lack of, strong security measures back then. Because, this is like 2001, so. But with the new security measures implemented today, I do feel safer. And even though, there's a whole controversy about, the body scanners or whatever and patting down, but, I think it's good. It's to keep us safe, and thank you, America.
When you see the old demolitions of these old buildings, it's folded down on itself, and it is not there anymore.
If you mean by response going to war, at the time I did as most Americans did, and everybody was just unified. Everybody was angry and hurt and upset, and somebody needed to be at fault, and somebody, we needed to go to war with somebody. So we didn't go to the war with the right people. I believe most of the hijackers, if not all, were from Saudi Arabia, where we had a good relationship with them, and somehow we ended up in Pakistan, or not Pakistan, but Afghanistan, and shamefully enough, Iraq.
I feel like at the time, war seemed like the only answer, but now looking back, all the lives being lost and stuff, you wonder if that was really necessary to run in to these countries, and then the Middle East that's already in turmoil, and then we're adding now ourselves and putting our troops in, and when we're after the terrorists, and then we're making these people, these countries suffer, and our own people are dying. So, but I mean, I don't know, because I don't know all the details, like the government people know.
I did not agree when the news is going out that we were going to go to war. I remember saying at the time that I felt it was a terrible mistake, and that so many things were going to happen down the road because of it. It wasn't going to solve anything.
I was a kid, so I can't really say whether or not it was, you know, their response was right. But like now, as I see it, I think America kind of had their hands tied behind their back. I think in order to, you know, represent who we are and to send a message to those that are watching us, I think we had to respond.
I definitely agree with the response. I think it was the right response to pretty much do something about it, like a strong act against it. And no, I don't believe 15 years of war has changed my views at all.
I don't think any of that had any difference at all. I don't think the government made any difference at all.
Well, the government's response to 9/11 was not what it turned out to be. 15 years of war devastated this country. The response to 9/11 would have been to go to Afghanistan, destroy the Taliban if they were protecting the terrorists, and then come home. There was no reason for us to go into Iraq. There was no reason for us to be in Afghanistan still today.
I understand why we went to war and all that, but you know, obviously looking back at it 15 years later, I would say it was an unmitigated disaster for U.S. and foreign policy at large.
I think people who were alive during 9/11, just like the people who were alive during Pearl Harbor, will probably be etched in their minds a little bit more. It was a day in their lives. It was a part of their life at that moment. If you're somebody who's going to be reading about this in the history book or on TV, obviously the impact would be a little bit less.
It'll always be remembered because it was such a tragic event. Like, it's not a very easy thing to forget.
No, it'll always be remembered. Always.
Yeah, they should make it a holiday so I get off work.
I believe it will fade into history like everything else, sadly to say, but that's the way it is.
I believe that it will probably fade into history. It's like something simple, like similar to like the Battle of Bunker Hill, where like at the time, like that was a huge, like important moment. But you know, like 20 years from now, we'll be like my kids will be learning about it in school.
It will probably fade into history, to be honest, because I mean, you think about like Pearl Harbor, you know, they say like 9/11 was like our Pearl Harbor, and nobody really thinks about Pearl Harbor like that anymore, even though they have Pearl Harbor Day, and maybe they have like specials on the History Channel, but they don't remember it like before. Like 9/11 for us is still so real because we like lived through it, but eventually like everything it'll be not forgotten, but you know, just another day.
It will probably be remembered, but it, like, as time passes, it probably won't be as big of a deal.
No, I think it'll always be remembered. It was a very dramatic event. A lot of people died, and died suddenly. And I mean, the images are horrific.
It's always going to be remembered. It's going to be like a Pearl Harbor type of event.
Oh, I think it'll certainly always be remembered. I mean, as long as, you know, I mean, every year we, you know, memorialize that day, and as long as we continue to do so and bring awareness to what happened, I mean, I think the same thing should be done for other stuff, like the Boston Marathon bombing. You know, you can't forget about that either, and different things like that. But no, September 11th will never be forgotten.